Surprise! We're together.
Live from New York.
Laura and I are here together in New York, and it is such a treat. And today, we have a very special episode.
Yes, not only are we together, but we are going to forecast 2023.
The astrology of 2023 is a cosmic BFD. So, without further ado, we are ready to break it down.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Should we share our screen?
Let's do it.
Okay. So there's a lot of life-changing transits happening in 2023. There we go. Okay, and Laura has made these stunning slides.
Why, thank you.
With everything you need to know, all the dates you've got to mark on your calendar. So I think January through March is going to be one of the biggest times. Like we've been talking about for a while, like life is not going to be the same.
Yes.
After March, everything will be different.
Yeah. So if you've been feeling like life is moving kind of slow, or you've been stagnant with, I think, Mars retrograde and Mercury retrograde right now, they're speaking to each other. I think after January 18th, when Mercury stations direct, your life is literally going to change. It's going to start to move forward, and things are just going to, I feel like, move very quickly.
Exactly.
How do you feel?
Yes, because Mercury is our mind, our thoughts, and Mars is how we take action. So if people who have been like hard on themselves for setting resolutions and not sticking with it, like astrologically speaking, it is not the time to start something new.
Yes.
We are in a period of slowing down and review. And like Laura said, January 18th, both of those planets will be direct and moving forward. Mars stations direct January 12th, and that is going to be the first cosmic BFD of the year. Mars has been retrograde in the sign of Gemini since October 30th.
Yes. And also, I did a TikTok about this. Technically, the astrological new year, some people say it's the solstice, some people say it's the Aries ingress when it's this equinox, the spring equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere. And it makes sense because in the Northern Hemisphere, we're in the middle of Capricorn season right now, and then it'll be Aquarius and then Pisces. And if you look outside, at least here in New York, nothing's growing, everything's resting. So that's just another reason for you to also just sync back with nature's cycles and trust your intuition, that just because you don't feel like you want to start something, that's not because you're lazy. It's because literally nature is telling you to rest.
Such a good point, because New Year's is aligned with the Gregorian calendar. And when you do align with the seasons, like, we just had the winter solstice, which is a mark of decay and like acknowledging what we have lost. But it's that liminal space and that transition space where we're moving towards more growth and more light, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So yeah, it's all, take your time.
Yes.
Take the pressure off yourself.
Exactly.
What do you think? What are you excited about in January?
I honestly am excited for Mars going direct.
Yes.
It has been in Gemini since August of last year. And if you're a mutable rising sign, or if you have mutable placements, man, that has been a real pain in the ass. So I think Mars moving direct on January 12th, it's going to relieve a lot of pressure. But also I think January feels like things are going to start to move forward. And as a Sagittarius rising, when things don't move forward, it's such a bummer to your self-confidence sometimes. That is the shadow side of Sagittarius, I have to say. So, going through this stagnation right now, has made me go more inward, obviously, with the Mars retrograde, but I can't help who I am. I like moving forward.
Well, I think that's an important call out, because I'm also a fire dominant person, and fire energy can be impetuous. Like we like to act, we like to do things. We're passionate when we get an idea, and for me too, I struggle with slowing down. I struggle with not having progress and movement. So
Yes.
this is a turning point. Station days are always more intense. So people have been talking about Mars retrograde since, last year. Mars entered Gemini in August, but that station day in particular, January 12th, is really kind of like a culmination point of your story, right? And almost definitely aha moments, but also having more clarity on how you want to act forward or move forward with the information and everything you've learned from your Mars retrograde.
Because you'll know by then.
Yes.
Like what you want to do. And since Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, that's why I said they're related.
They're answering to each other.
Exactly.
So it's a little bit of a cosmic, it's a sleepy time in the stars, but the energy is going to pick up after January 18th. And after that, I think from January 18th through March 7th, we have a lot of exciting forward movement. Uranus will station direct on the 22nd of January. March 7th, though.
Yes.
What do we have?
Well, so February was kind of quiet. I only highlighted the major things that we should pay attention to. But then March is gonna rock our world, basically. We're gonna be like, what?
Yes. Everything will be different. So a couple of things. Mars has been in Gemini, like I said, since August of last year. In March, it will enter Cancer on the 25th. So we've had essentially, almost 6 months of Mars in Gemini. And then we're moving into this new way of initiating and moving forward. Saturn, the planet of limitations, challenges, restrictions, karma, but also dedication and commitment, will be entering Pisces. And it's been in Saturn ruled signs for 5 years, right?
Like 6, right? Each has 3 years.
Yeah, something like that. So quite some time.
Yeah.
So this is a big shift as well. And the grand finale, you want to tell them?
Which one?
Pluto
entering Aquarius. So I think this time period is very crucial because March 20th is the equinox, and then March 21st, I didn't write those down.
And your birthday.
And my birthday. And March 21st is the new moon in Aries, and then the 23rd Pluto enters Aquarius, and then the 25th Mars enters Cancer finally. So that week is going to be so epic.
You will feel, if you have any doubt or hesitation about astrology, you're going to feel the cosmic shifts that week. Pluto is such a big deal because it hasn't been in the sign of Aquarius since 1778. You heard that right?
Yes.
It's been centuries. And that's a long transit. We're getting a preview. It's going to be in Aquarius until June 11th, and then it will retrograde back in Capricorn and finish up that story. So this is really like a 3-month window to get behind the scenes peek of what is our personal Pluto and Aquarius story. What are some themes that might be coming up? But it's definitely life-changing.
Yes. So if you have planets or placements around 0, of the fixed signs, you're definitely going to feel this.
Yes. Or angles. So just look at your chart, your natal chart, and see if you have, I would also say 1 degree, right? Absolutely.
Or 29 cap.
Yeah. And Laura and I, we always love to mention, but we're very familiar with Pluto energies. Laura just went through a massive Pluto transit. My life is a Pluto transit. And it's not the easiest archetype or energy to work with, but the key, if we could give one piece of wisdom, boiling it down is surrender. And really facing your fears. If you make a list of all the things that you've been avoiding, that just ignites some terror within you that you're scared of, and you take steps towards combating those fears in some way, that Pluto's going to recognize that. And that's how you work with the energy versus the resistance. When you have that resistance and the desire to control, that's when Pluto really kicks it up a notch.
Yes. And I would also say this is where a lot of your unconscious triggers can come up, and it's in the unconscious, so you're not aware of it. But you can tell what your triggers are by what you're triggered by.
Mhm.
And those are the shadows trying to make themselves known to you. And it's very easy to figure this out. Just spend a weekend with your family and you will know exactly what those triggers are. And
Quickest way. Quickest way.
and instead of trying to repress them or suppress them, you just work with it and you like look at it and you ask, like, what is this trying to show me? Because clearly there's a live wire there that needs to be attended to.
Absolutely. So, and Pluto and Saturn are generational planets. So when we see those shifting signs, we feel it on a collective and mundane level. So keep an eye on the headlines. There's going to be major significant landmark discoveries. I don't know, but just tons of events probably taking place.
Yeah, literally like a different reality I feel like we're stepping into. And you know, with everything there's always a light and a dark expression, and so we leave room for everything. But if you hold the intention for the highest timeline possible, this is how we can like avoid some, I don't know, dystopian future that a lot of astrologers are afraid of with Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah, absolutely. My Leo sun loves to keep the optimism, so you know.
Me too.
Yeah,
I'm like optimist. I'm to a default sometimes,
Yeah.
to a fault sometimes, because people are like, "Oh, you're so Pollyanna," and I'm like, "Well, it's worked out for me."
yeah, yeah. So that's the front half of the year is heavy with big transits. And then we kind of glide into our next Mercury retrograde in April. We had Mercury retrograde in Taurus last year.
And all of them this year are in earth signs, which I like because you can tangibly work with that energy.
Yes. So look at all of the earth sign houses in your chart, and like those are the main themes that you're going to be dealing with. So for example, my earth placements have to do with work, career, my finances. So I know there's going to be some type of revision and shifts in those areas of my life. But those three houses, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, are all related in some way in your chart. So just tune into that.
So that's
Q1, as they say. Yes, that's Q1. Okay, let's bring up Q2. Oh, Pluto stations. Okay, I feel like that is going to be a big one.
Yes. May 1st.
This was the first year that I actually paid attention to the outer planet stationing. And oh my gosh, it's so noticeable. Like when you actually journal and pay attention.
Especially in the news.
Yes.
The news cycles. Oh yeah.
So May 1st, we've definitely got some big stuff going on there.
Yeah. I'm also curious because what's his name? Jeff Bezos is an Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. And I feel like all of the famous people who have prominent Aquarius placements with Pluto going there, like some transformation is going to go down. Whether it's like they're going to lose some of their power because Pluto in Aquarius is powered back to the people, or something's going on.
Yeah. It could be. It's almost like a cosmic scale, right? You're being weighed, and it could be, if you're acting in alignment and for the greater good, there's this sense of empowerment and more influence and really stepping in and owning your full potential. But if you're leaning into your shadow, Pluto shines a light in that little area.
And it amplifies things.
Yes.
Like a lot.
Yes. So that's a good point. That will be a big day in the news. Pay attention to May 1st. And then I'm excited for Jupiter entering Taurus.
Yes. And actually that previous Mercury retrograde that was in Taurus, it's between 5 and 15 degrees of Taurus. I feel like that's going to be like a hint as to what your Jupiter and Taurus story might be about, because it'll like expand everything that you've been working on. Because also when Jupiter goes retrograde, it'll be covering those degree points as well. So again, like if you have fixed placements, specifically in Taurus, obviously, but you're gonna get this like Jupiterian expansion in some area of your life.
And it's almost like when Mercury retraces those steps in Taurus through the retrograde, and once it's moving direct, it's whispering to you.
Yes.
Like, what are you trying to build, grow, expand? What blessings are you trying to call into your life? When Jupiter enters Taurus finally on May 16th, that's when it's really going to take off. So
yes,
be diligent and committed to that slowing down and the refining process, and allowing yourself to really reevaluate what you're working towards or calling in, because Jupiter will bring some type of blessing eventually. And the more honest you are about it, like the better the result, right?
Yeah, and you've been focused on that area anyway, because the North Node has been there since the beginning of 2021, and the eclipse points and the North and South Node, like you've been having major beginnings and endings in those areas of your life. So I think like whatever eclipse story was in your Taurus house, because it was a North Node was increasing, and then Mercury going back there, like, you know, working diligently, and then Jupiter's like, here's your gift.
Yeah, and destined news, destined
Yes.
information, breakthroughs, aha moments, especially when I'm not sure if Mercury will meet the North Node, but whenever they're kind of in orb of one another, that can bring up some really important fated information in your life.
Yes. Another beautiful fixed sign placement happening on June 5th is Venus entering Leo. And the only reason why I put it there is because Venus will go retrograde in Leo. So just pay attention to your Leo house, because you're going to go through the Venus retrograde there.
Can't wait. Says my Leo sun. Yes. And June 5th, I'm glad you put June 5th, because I found that the day that the sign ingresses, that if you look back, if you journal again, I'm a big proponent of journaling along with the transits, you are going to see such loud themes of your personal retrograde story. It's often on that day that you're going to start to get clues. So Venus retrograde is a time, it's similar to all the other retrogrades, but it's really focused on our relationships, our connection with others, our connections with our values, with our finances as well. So,
but also really paying attention to our desires and like what our heart wants, because Leo is like heart energy.
Yes.
And creativity and childlike, and maybe a lot of people will do inner child work during this time and connect to that part of themselves.
Absolutely. That's a great way to use this transit for your, growth.
I'm excited just because it's in my 9th house. So I feel like maybe I'll go on a trip or something.
Oh,
yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Now we've got Pluto re-entering Capricorn on June 11th. So that's a big deal, because this is going to be the final, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. And it will never be in this part of our charts in your lifetime. I can guarantee it. So yeah, it's the end of that Pluto and Capricorn story, which is really focused a lot on the shadow side of, our government, systems of structure and power. And the financial crisis happened right at the beginning in 2008. So the markets, and Capricorn, it's the US is Pluto return. So this is like the final exact hit of that.
Yes, that'll be interesting to see, because then Pluto will be doing its like transformation stage, finishing up its story.
And Saturn will also be stationing retrograde a couple days later. What do you think about Saturn retrograde? Do you have you noticed
Saturn,
anything?
I have Saturn retrograde in my chart. I think honestly, I don't notice it as much when it's not in like an angular house, or because I've had it in my cadent house. So yeah, I noticed it because it was on my moon and my Venus, but I normally don't notice Saturn retrogrades unless it's like because I've really felt the Saturn in Aquarius.
Yeah, of course.
It's so strong.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think I think Saturn just makes you like more disciplined and matured, and it makes you like really take stock of what you have in your life because it takes something away.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it?
I've noticed that during the retrograde period, I like ease up on my boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Like I ease up on even my daily routine. I have Saturn in the sixth, so that's something that is in my cosmic DNA. But yeah, usually I get a little slack with my routines and setting boundaries. And when normally I would say no to something, I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, and then it always comes back. Saturn always comes back and is like, you should have listened to your gut. So,
and it's going to be in Pisces, which is like no boundaries.
no boundaries. This is so Piscean, right? It's like, it's hard to grasp Pisces to begin with, but I struggle. I said this last time with Saturn and Pisces because it feels so like, what? It just feels like it doesn't make sense because Saturn is all about boundaries, limits. And Pisces, like you said, knows no limits. It's very ethereal.
I think people are going to get more serious about spirituality.
Yes.
And get more into it. And I also just saw on the news that they were legalizing psilocybin in New York if you're over the age of 21, which is very Saturn and Pisces to me. Because for me, psychedelics is Pisces.
Yes.
Very Neptunian.
I think the pharmaceutical industry will also have a lot of major changes. The last time Saturn was in Pisces, I think there was some discourse in the 90s about violent video games and stuff. So that could come up in some way. And also, I think in general and on a personal level, our dreams are going to be tested.
Oh, yeah.
So it's almost like a little bit of a, I don't know, plunging into the depths of hell and like, you have to just keep going.
Yes.
Don't lose faith. Your faith is being tested in some way, depending on what part of your birth chart Saturn is moving through. Yeah. So,
and all you Saturn and Pisces will have your Saturn return.
Welcome to your cosmic quinceañera.
Yay.
But you know, it's you are a different person after your Saturn return, and often it's when you shed the expectations of, I think for me, like your family, like what did, you know, what did people expect of you? What did they hope of you? And you really step into what do you want to do? A lot of people find their true calling and like change careers and make big life decisions. And it's not always easy, but it's worth it looking back.
Yes. People usually get married during this time or have their first child. My mom had my sister during her Saturn return, so they have the same Saturn. Or like me, you go through a huge breakup and you change your entire life.
Yeah. It's like burning it down to the ground. So welcome, Saturn and Pisces.
Yes.
And Aquarius risings, you're welcome. We're so happy for you.
And then Pluto's there, like in the background, like.
Yeah, Pluto is coming, sorry, but you'll have a break from June through the end of the year.
No, but I feel like Saturn Aquarius, like Saturn in its domicile is way, way rough.
Yes.
So I think the break of it being in its domicile is going to be really nice.
It'll be nice. It'll definitely change up the energy. And then we've got, what do you think? The nodal shift is the next big one, or?
Yeah, I think, you know, during the summer, all the planets will start going retrograde again. So if there was ever a time that you wanted to launch something, it would be from January 23rd to April. And I wrote down those dates on the first slide. But like that is like not rare, but when you have like 3 months where all the planets are going direct, that's a great time to launch and like get out there and share your ideas with people, because starting in June the planets will start going retrograde again, and so
we're turning inward and we're rethinking things and we're refining, and that's necessary. And maybe we're resting, maybe we used up a lot of energy in the beginning of the year, maybe we got hit by Pluto or Saturn in some tough way, and you deserve rest. So.
But I also don't think, like, because the planets go retrograde so often, I don't think it's like you can't launch things, and it's not like you can't manifest, because I ultimately think retrogrades, as they're closer to Earth, and it's sometimes easier to manifest because as within, so without. So like your focus is inward. And so when you work on your internal shifts, then the outer realm changes quicker.
That's very
That's
true.
just my personal opinion.
That's very true. Yeah. And the nodes of fate, the nodes of destiny will be shifting on July 18th.
Oh yeah.
So we've had, which I'm really excited for.
Me too. I'm excited for this.
The North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio. Doozy.
Yes, it was.
Doozy.
It was.
It will still be a dramatic shift. It's going to bring focus to our relationships of all kinds, social contracts. And we may be exiting important relationships in our lives. But we may also feel more empowered in the process and feel more authentic. And yeah, this is a longer transit that will last until January of 2025, and the eclipses will start taking place in these signs. So if you are a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you will experience some seismic cosmic shifts.
I was telling my mom this morning, because I was thinking about the North Node in Aries and just being an Aries sun myself. I think a lot more people this year are going to go after what they want and like quit their jobs and just say enough is enough. Like, I'm not going to do something, because we work so much. You might as well do what you want.
Yep.
And what you love.
Yep.
Right. So I think a lot more people this year are going to quit their jobs and maybe even become single, because Aries is like me.
Yeah, it's the me versus we axis. Yeah.
And but not all, obviously.
But I think that's important that you bring that up, because Venus stations retrograde a couple days after the node switch.
Right. Yes.
And that is a review of all your relationships as well. So if you are in a situationship, or if you are you feel some like unhappiness or unfulfillment, like bubbling beneath the surface, the retrograde period is a time to address that. So it really could bring a fated end to relationships that you are ready and worthy of leaving. So
yeah, I love that. So just quickly mentioning, Chiron will station retrograde July 23rd in Aries. So this will be around the North Node as well. August 23rd, Mercury will station retrograde in Virgo. And then August 28th, Uranus will station retrograde in Taurus.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the only thing I want to add about Mercury retrograde in Virgo is that it feels like a basic bitch retrograde, because Mercury, Mercury is the planet associated with Virgo. And so anything you can think of that's like very cliche, like technology mix-ups, texting the wrong person, like communication and commute delays, transportation delays, all that kind of stuff is it's going to be very standard for Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
Okay. What do we have?
We're really going through this.
There's so much for next year. Yeah. And I think, so then September 3rd is when Venus stations direct. And this is kind of like, I think it's like the main event for the second part of the year is the Venus retrograde.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people's summers are going to be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exes might come back
for sure
with the Venus retrograde. I think it's going to be very sexy. Venus and Leo, personally.
Drama.
Yeah,
we're gonna have some drama, okay? Because that's what we love as Leos. We always bring up hits. We do just a little bit of theatrics, So don't I don't know. It's definitely going to be an exciting time,
and it rules the South Node. So I think, like you were saying, a lot of people are going to evaluate their relationships and is this serving me? And I think the last slide we'll talk about the eclipses, but those eclipses, I don't know, there could be a lot of endings.
Well, and I think to your point, I didn't think about that, how Venus retrograde is going to be ruling the South Node. It may bring up like how authentic are you showing up in your relationships?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
that's very Leo, is like
Yeah.
being yourself, being
Mhm.
and expressing yourself. And so if you feel silenced in some way, or if you feel like you can't fully be who you are, then this kind of energy will bring a big shift.
Mhm. And don't you also think with like the North Node in Aries, so it's like a fire sign, and then Venus in Leo, which is a fire sign, like I think a lot of people are going to realize like what brings them joy and fire, because we're moving away from this old way of being in relationships as like you complete me, or like you two become one. I don't believe in that. I think it's
You gotta be whole
I'm
on your own.
whole,
Yep, 100%.
and you add something special
Yes.
to my life,
I
and
choose.
two become
Yeah.
three, like a third entity, energetic entity, where we create something together. And I think a lot of people, hopefully, if we're doing the work, realize that.
Yes, that's beautifully said. Absolutely. So we're going to cruise along in September. Jupiter will station retrograde. I noticed, I paid attention again this year to Jupiter retrograde, and I felt like I lost steam in a lot of my hopes and dreams.
I did too, for sure.
And it was so sad.
Sure.
And I was like, what's happening?
Well, I also think it's because Jupiter was in its domicile. I don't always think planets in domicile are good.
Because they just amplify. Yeah, get louder.
Personally, Jupiter in Pisces was super depressing.
It was a doozy. It was in my 8th house. Everybody died. Not to be dramatic, but it was a doozy.
It was in my 4th house. Yeah. It was square to me, and it was just like,
yeah. Yes. So, yeah,
it really depends on your chart.
Yeah, but your hope, your faith, like you might lose a little bit of that. It doesn't mean it won't come back.
Yes.
And it was so funny because once Jupiter stationed direct, I literally did feel that shift. And I went back and I looked in my journal and I was like, so sad, such a little sad girl writing. And I was like, oh, this makes sense.
It was sad girl time.
So, you know, just know that it's temporary. That's why we like to tell you this, like, just so you can flow and be aligned with the energy and just not lose hope ultimately. But if things slow down, it's on brand. It's cosmically aligned.
Well, Jupiter is my ruler. So when it went back into Pisces, I was like, what? So sad.
Yeah.
But not for everybody. I feel like, you know, we all have different energetic relationships with the planet.
Totally. Definitely depends individual to individual.
Yes.
Then we have what, our final Mercury retrograde in September? Or no, not our final.
Then all of the planets start going direct. After September 15th, Mercury stations direct in Virgo.
I see.
Then Pluto in October 10th. Then each like outer planet will start going direct. So again, like I think between June and December is more of like an inward time, and then by December things are just going to start spicing up again.
Right. Okay, so December 6th is when Neptune stations direct, and that's the final. So December 6th through the 13th, because on December 13th is our next Mercury retrograde. That week, you will probably notice a lot of forward momentum.
And this one starts in Sag and ends in Capricorn.
And what I think is very interesting is the station point, the turning point when it starts to go to direct again is going to be 8 degrees Capricorn. And that is the same degree
as Mercury,
as this Mercury retrograde. So,
right.
And what's even creepier about that is this Mercury retrograde that we are currently in right now, living through, is the same degree from last December's Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. So we are going to be teleported not only back to this December, but to December of 2021.
Yes.
So it's really like a mind fuck and inception and timeline jumping backwards to finish up whatever have not finished.
So I was listening to another astrologer, now I forget because I listened to so many of them, but she was saying this full moon in Cancer, which is happening this when is that? It's Friday?
Yeah.
So it's 16 degrees of Cancer and Cap. This was the same degree as the full moon eclipse, the full moon lunar eclipse in Cancer in 2019 before the pandemic.
Oh, holy macaroni.
Because that was the Cancer Capricorn axis. So she was saying like think back to 2019 before we knew anything was going to happen.
Oh, geez.
And what were you feeling? Because Cancer is in its domicile in the moon is in its domicile in Cancer. So it's a very powerful full moon. What were you feeling? What did you think about your life? Like, what were you doing? And then how did that change during these last 3 years during the pandemic? And how do you want to move forward? Because Cancer is a cardinal sign.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. When she said that, I was
me
like,
peanut butter and nervous. I
when she said that, I literally, my skin was like tingling because I remember that axis. So, because it was my nodal return, but I remember that year too, and knowing that everything was going to happen, everything's going to change. I just didn't know how. And now looking back at that version of me, I'm like a completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the saddest in December of 2019. Saddest. But that is really, really good to know.
Yeah, but look at now you're like doing all this
totally
stuff.
different.
I mean,
totally different life.
She's here because she's going to be on the Today Show tomorrow. Like, what? Like, come on.
Yeah, life did change.
So
You're right.
cool.
You're right. You're right.
Life changed for the better is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's a reflection because also Cancer talks about being nostalgic and looking back at the past. And
you can use it for gratitude. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at how much it's changed.
Yeah. That's that Aries optimism I love so much. And this full moon, we'll just give you another little tip, because it's happening so soon, is opposite Mercury retrograde. So the moon, it's like literally shining light on your Mercury retrograde story.
Yes.
It's going to be, it happens the day before the Cazimi. So that's when Mercury sits in the heart of the sun. And that's usually like our aha moment and turning point in our retrograde story. But we also have the full moon just like lighting it up and shining a spotlight on it. So it's even more intense. A lot of breakthroughs, information, insight in your intuition. It's a water sign. Feeling. What do you feel in your body? Even if there's a situation, if you're more of like a logical kind of thinker, tune into what do you feel physically when you think about that situation. That can tell you a lot about how you want to move forward.
Yeah, and the sun will be in a trine to Uranus, and the degree point is the Uran eclipse. as Diana Harper Rose says, the Uran eclipse in Taurus that we just had, it was at 16 degrees, and this is full moon is at 16 degrees. So the sun will be trine to the North Node in Uranus and sextile to the moon. So I think this is a great thing because it's like that last emotional purge. From the eclipse stories, and then from like all of the 3 years that we've been through, because clearly we've all been through something traumatic collectively together, and now it feels like we're moving forward.
Yes.
Right.
And Uranus's energy is going to encourage us to break free differently and do things differently. And if we are reflecting on the past because of the Cancer full moon, the sun Uranus is going to kind of shake things up for us in a productive, healing, and inspiring way.
Yes.
Okay, so that Mercury retrograde. Also, now I'm retrograding right now. Excuse me. But back to the Mercury retrograde. It starts in Sagittarius. Mercury in Sagittarius. I love my Mercury in Sagittarius people. My uncle's Mercury in Sagittarius. My sister's Mercury in Sagittarius. But that placement can be a little bit of a word vomiter. So it could be messy. Just be, more mindful and careful with what you say, what you share. But it's an important time to shift perspectives. So,
yeah. Definitely not as dicey as Christmas last year was rough. I forgot the specific transit. Was it Saturn Uranus square?
Yes.
Yeah, last Christmas.
Oh, yes, it was.
Yeah, that was dicey.
11 degrees.
Yeah. I feel like now we're getting to like more calmer holidays. This year we had a Venus Pluto conjunction on New Year's, right? New Year's Eve. So yeah, I think this year is going to be a little better. Jupiter was stationed retrograde on December 30th.
And it'll be in Taurus, right? It's going direct. Okay.
Direct. Yes.
Yeah. That's actually, that feels very like a very beautiful way to wrap up,
Mhm.
you know, the calendar year,
Mhm.
with more faith and optimism.
Mhm. I
So
believe in it.
yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. So we have one more slide that talks about the eclipses.
Oh boy. Yeah. The first two in particular
The
feel,
first one,
yeah.
29 Aries.
Okay.
Ah.
Okay, let's chat about that.
So in we have two new moons in Aries this year, which I think is interesting. The first one's at 0 degrees of Aries on March 21st.
Oh, excuse me.
Hi. But that's not an eclipse.
Uh-huh.
The second one, which
Yeah.
was so interesting because you're starting at 0 and then a month later, 29 Aries is a solar eclipse, total solar eclipse.
A couple years ago, we had the same thing
In Aquarius.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's when I got that's when the publisher reached out to me. Yeah.
Ooh, this is going to be big for you. I'm excited. But a couple things about the April 19th eclipse. 29 degrees is what's called an anaretic degree. It is the final degree before it shifts signs. So that means, you know, the sun and the moon have traveled through all of the degrees in Aries and they reach the final point and it's a culmination and it's like tension is built up. They are ready to shift signs, but there's this pressure. On top of it, the planet that's going to be ruling this lunation is Mars in Cancer, which can be beautiful and it can also struggle. So yeah,
and they're both cardinal signs.
They're both cardinal signs. So they'll be forming whole sign squares to one another. Yeah, that eclipse feels a little chaotic and I'm not gonna lie, possibly a little depressing.
Definitely triggering because Mars in Cancer to me is like protection. Like I'm protecting myself. I'm moving, I'm getting away from you. And solar eclipses are new moons. So you could, obviously when you start a new beginning, things release. Eclipses are major beginnings and endings.
Yes. It's when I often say it's like your hands are off the steering wheel and fate takes over and it's like, you didn't want to do this. Here we go.
Or as my mom says, Jesus takes the wheel.
Jesus takes the wheel. Yes, 100%. And it's literally like that list that you made during Pluto's entrance in Aquarius of like all your fears. The eclipses are like, here we go. Yes. So anything that you've been avoiding, just work with Pluto. I beg you. The more proactive you can be, the better. It's a time to surrender. It's not a time to try to control what's going on or release your expectations.
And so I'll give examples of remediation for Pluto transits. So I really got into the occult, like tarot, and doing a lot of work with depth psychology and Jungian theory and researching the archetypes and doing shadow work. Like those are the ways that I was able to go into my own personal underworld. And also the mythology of Inanna is really great. If you don't know what that is, you could just look it up. But it's her descent into the underworld. And so there's things that you can do during this time to help you.
Absolutely. So it's followed by the final lunar eclipse in Scorpio that wraps up the Scorpio part of our eclipse story on May 5th. That one's conjunct my Pluto.
Fun.
Cute, just realized on air. Live from New York. No, we don't want that. Mercury retrograde. So, and this is also ruled by the Mars in Cancer. But this one is forming, the ruler of lunation is forming a trine. So that's a little bit more supportive.
Yeah.
Right? And there'll be some type of reception because Mars is ruled by Scorpio. So
that's right.
Maybe we have a little bit of mitigation here.
That's right.
But think back to May and November of last year and November of 2021. Those are going to be the milestones that were taking place and the events that were going on in your life. This is like almost the grand finale. So whatever, take a look at your Scorpio house.
Mhm.
Something is wrapping up there for you.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Mhm.
On October 14th, we have an annular solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra.
Oh, geez.
Another new moon in your Libra house. It's conjunct my Saturn. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, but maybe we'll be building something exciting, right?
Yeah.
Making some exciting commitments, exalted Saturn.
Yes.
It's conjunct my IC.
Oh.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nice.
Okay. So, and this one is ruled by, I believe, Venus in Virgo. Which, you know, Venus in Virgo, I can say we have some difficulties. But
also you'll be going through a Venus return.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But like Laura said, it's a fresh start. It's a new beginning in the Libra house of your life.
New relationships, maybe.
Absolutely. New contracts, collaborations, in business, romance, platonic.
Maybe women will have autonomy over their bodies.
Thank you for elevating that. Yes.
Like, I want to put it out there, like, because Libra is the justice system, and Venus rules the feminine. Not everybody believes that, but we have limited language to work here. And I think I said to you, I don't remember if it was a private chat, but I think that AOC might run for president during this time, because she's a Libra Sun, Aries Moon, and she was born during an eclipse. And she turns 35 in 2024.
We are bookmarking this so it goes viral when she announces her campaign.
Or 35 this year or next year, I don't remember actually.
Yeah.
I
think you're spot on for that.
Yeah.
With some of her transits too. And the Taurus and Scorpio axis, a lot of we saw the changes around abortion rights and women's rights and healthcare, and so there was the loss through Scorpio, the South Node. So I don't know, Libra is still the South Node, but maybe it is some type of new beginning, and with justice involved, let's lend some of our fire sign optimism there.
Yes. Yes, and actually we did a whole episode about Venus and Mars, and how now the South Node is going to be ruled by Venus and the North Node will be ruled by Mars. So maybe like this could be like women taking back, like Mars, very Martian, like taking back their rights and stuff and fighting back. How do you feel about Aries being like the god of war?
I mean, I've just read it a lot in the Western astrology classes I've taken, but I don't think that I know enough to really, on a deeper level. I just know that that's like what a lot of Western astrologers associate with.
So I have Mars in Libra, which is like in its detriment.
Yeah.
And I feel like war only happens when you're fighting for something you love and you believe in. I mean, it should be.
Yeah.
I think people who go to war for greed, that's maybe Mars in Aries, or like it's like greed and stuff. But I've learned about my Mars. I have Mars retrograde in Libra, and I never understood that placement. I was like, it's just useless.
Oh my gosh. So hard on yourself.
I'm so hard on myself. But I now think that it's like fighting for what you love and what you believe in, and fighting for justice.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. No, that is really, really beautiful, and it's poignant.
Looking at it, I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, what is it doing actually? It's not doing anything.
No, it is making the world a better, more equitable, just place.
Yes.
It's very, very important. And I wonder, we've for so long we've associated it with what being in detriment, and maybe that's like white supremacist patriarchal kind of views, right? Because like if you do fight for what you believe in, if you do fight for the equity of everyone,
Yeah.
That is very Mars and Libra.
Yes.
And maybe we'll be seeing some shifts around that.
Yeah, I really had to understand planets in detriment, because I also have Mercury in Pisces, which is also
My favorite thing about you.
It
It is. My Venus in Virgo loves it. It's exactly opposite your Mercury in Pisces.
Oh my God,
It is.
is. Oh
It
my
is.
God.
It's the cutest little thing.
Oh my God, that's so fun. We have so much synastry.
Yeah.
But I really had to understand it because so many astrologers were like, talking shit about it. And I'm like, it works in a different way, and maybe even a better way.
Oh my gosh. You have like ding, direct link
Yeah.
to the divine. It is like an oracle placement. I think it's, beautiful. And I think and we should do an episode about detriment, because I also have some.
What are yours?
Well, I've got Venus in Virgo.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's my main doozy.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn in Aquarius, but that's rulership. But still,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about that. There's some dark sides.
Yes, there's some dark sides to that for sure.
Okay. Grand finale,
Mm-hmm.
October 28th, lunar eclipse, 5 degrees, Taurus. This is going to be, makes me think of the solar eclipse in Taurus that took place at 10 degrees. And I think it was in March of this year,
Mm-hmm.
April.
Mm-hmm.
Think back to then. This is a grand finale release moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's, that part of this, whatever was going on in your life, is wrapping up. So we're making major shifts and changes. And I feel like, if I'm recalling correctly, Venus will be in Scorpio, but I'm not sure during that one. So that's who should be ruling that.
Yeah. Yeah, because Venus moves pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
through all the signs. So overall, like, how do you feel about 2023?
I think 2023 is going to offer us a lot of hope, and we have a lot of forward movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think midway through the year, we may feel like we've been hit by a semi truck, and that's okay. But I think it's going to be deep with that Pluto shifting signs. I think it's going to be a lot of the darker shadow work, and I think we're going to see it expressed in the media and the news in some really challenging and tough ways. And I think it can be triggering for a lot of people. And but I think ultimately it's going to start conversations and awareness about issues and that just deserve to be reworked.
Yeah. And Stephanie's saying this because the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was during the Revolutionary War in the United States, the Haitian Revolution, the French Revolution. And it was the United States one was the catalyst to creating the Declaration of Independence as well, which we the people, Pluto and Aquarius. But it just makes me think that like there's no change without revolution.
Yes.
And the revolution part a little difficult because also in 2026, I believe, is the Uranus return of the United States.
Oh geez.
Which will be in trine relationships to the Pluto. So I think that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
We're moving into air, it seems, out of Earth.
Yes.
So are we going to be like the Jetsons?
Yeah, we'll be reporting by June 11th. We are going to be reporting from a little spaceship beaming in using AI. It may not even be us.
Holograms.
I do think some crazy stuff is going to happen.
I think so. I think it's already here.
Yeah.
They just haven't showed it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Laura and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago, like the headlines of harnessing the power and the energetic power of the sun and the stars with nuclear fusion breakthroughs. That's something that they're working on behind the scenes. Like, I think we're going to see just major shifts. And we also, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was when we had the discovery of Uranus, the rebel. That's right. So it's, space exploration, of course, but also returning to that theme of revolutionizing freedom, individuating, is really important.
Or realizing on a mass level that time is a man-made concept and that we could time travel right now using our consciousness.
Yes. 100%. Seriously. Yeah.
Because I keep telling my parents New Year's Eve it doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
It's arbitrary. It literally based on nothing.
Yeah.
Like this could be January 1st.
I write in my horoscopes every year. I'm like, the new moon in Virgo,
Mhm.
that's your New Year's resolution. Like if you
Mhm.
want a new habit, if you want to
Mhm.
change your routine,
Mhm.
new moon in Virgo,
Yes.
that's the time to do it.
Yes.
Or any, a lot new
Any
moons,
new moon.
any new moon,
Yeah.
but in particular,
Mhm.
so
That's why I'm still technically hibernating until March
Yeah.
20th when it's Aries, because that's when the soil is fertile, that's when it's
Yes.
ready, that's when the sun is equal to the dark. But right now I'm like, why are we even like stressing about this?
Yeah, there should be zero
Everyone's
stress.
making these resolutions,
Mhm.
and like you said, with Mars retrograde, Mercury retrograde, I'm like, do you not understand, like, as above, so below?
Yeah, and then I mean to take the pressure off yourself, because
Yeah.
once you do set those resolutions and you're not able to stick with them, then the shame, the guilt spiral, and
Because the energy is not available.
it's not available. So it will be
It will be, for sure.
January 18th
Mhm.
through March BFD.
Yes.
Great time.
Yes. And so next week we were gonna do a little fun thing for all of you, going through each of the rising signs
Yes.
and kind of like your overarching theme for 2023. So make sure to watch that.
Yes, we'll have highlights of all the major transits for your sign.
Mhm.
So make sure to pay attention for your sun, moon, and rising, but especially the rising sign.
Yes. So this was so fun.
I wish we could be in person every week. Oh. We'll be back together soon enough. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.
Bye.
Bye.